We're going on another local road trip on Interstate 95. Oh boy. Alright, since I already did a local Interstate 40 guide, why not do another one that I've been on many times, which is Interstate 95. I've been on Interstate 95 basically here in the state of North Carolina and through most of Virginia, so I'm going to have a lot to say about the signage here on that stretch of Interstate 95. And yes, I am sure about that sign. That is not a good sign. So let's get started with this video and see how angry I get. But first, you're watching the TheDerpHog, where I make highways content on all sorts of different topics. If you've been enjoying it, be sure to hit that like button. And if you've been really enjoying it, be sure to smash that subscribe button so you're notified on all future videos. And if you really want to help out the channel, become a member today, where you get custom cool emojis, early access to future videos, along with one free exit request per month. And if you don't want to become a member, you can always just pay $3 for a intersection request in future videos. Those highways will be listed down in the description below, and I'll make sure to shout you out when that video releases. So let's get on with the highway. As you can see here, this is the map of Interstate 95 here in the states of North Carolina and Virginia, and it travels through roughly the eastern portion of the states. So with that, we're going to be talking about northbound Interstate 95. So we begin here at the south of the border attraction, where this is roughly the halfway point between Florida and New York. And after this exit for US 301 and 501, we now have a Welcome to North Carolina sign. And this here, exit 2, is our first actual exit in the state of North Carolina, and it's for North Carolina 130. And let's see what we're signed north for on North Carolina 130. What in the world is this? Why are we signed north for Lumberton? That should not be Lumberton, that should be Fayetteville. Fayetteville is a major city here in North Carolina. Lumberton is just a small town. Why is it signed? In fact, on our first mileage sign in the state, we get Fayetteville on the bottom line at 42 miles away. Where was it at exit 2? It should be signed for Fayetteville. Here's where US 301 is joining Interstate 95. Here I'm meeting the 74s, and this sign is just hurting my head. Please just give it off the screen. Here in Lumberton, we're meeting North Carolina Highway 72, and this is the exit that I've been off of when I visited Lumberton. I was on a school field trip going to Myrtle Beach, and on the way back we decided to stop here in Lumberton, and this is the exit that I took, so that was pretty cool. And here's where US 301 splits off from Interstate 95 here in Lumberton. Here in Fayetteville, we're meeting Interstate 95 Business, which takes you into downtown Fayetteville. And Interstate 95 is now signed north for Dunn and Benson. Dunn and Benson. This is the second most offensive sign on the entire interstate highway system. Yes, this is right up there with Interstate 78 sign east for Easton. You know what should be on 95 sign? Raleigh and Richmond. Why is Dunn and Benson on there? No need for those two cities. And at random interchanges between Fayetteville and Benson, we're signed north for Benson. Again, do Raleigh or Richmond. No need for Benson. And you know what's making it even worse? We're meeting North Carolina 87 here in Fayetteville, and it's a major freeway through the city, and it's not getting an overhead sign. What is wrong with you, NC-DOT? And on this interchange, we're still signed north for Dunn and Benson. No, do Raleigh or Richmond or both. No Dunn and Benson. Here I mean North Carolina 53 at the famous exit 49. And now we're meeting North Carolina 24, and guess what? North Carolina 24 is the longest state highway here in North Carolina, and it does not get an overhead sign. What is wrong with you? And even Interstate 295 does not get an overhead sign. What, are you allergic to overhead signs in the Fayetteville area, NC-DOT? Give these highways an overhead signs. But North Carolina too gets an overhead sign. It's the highway that goes to Irwin. No, not that Irwin. This Irwin. It goes to Irwin, North Carolina, a sister city of Dunn. So why does it get an overhead sign? And in fact, we get no mention of Benson on our next mileage sign. Instead, we get Wilson. So what happened to Benson? Are you inconsistent? Just pick a city. Here in Dunn, we're making US 421 and North Carolina Highway 55. And luckily, I can just take this exit to go get a donut from Sherry's Bakery to calm me down from this nonsense. And still in Dunn, we actually passed by what seems to be the longest rooms to go. Seriously, this building is like half a mile long or something. We got our first extra request of the video, and it was made by Spongy727. He actually wanted to see the Benson exit for North Carolina 50 and 242, because this is the route he takes to get to his relatives, so thank you for requesting this exit. We also see that we're meeting Interstate 40 in 2 miles, and it's signed for Raleigh and Wilmington. So Interstate 40 gets the correct control cities? Why not 95? And here's the actual exit for Interstate 40, and 95 is now signed north for Rocky Mount. Where was Rocky Mount on that mileage sign we just saw a few minutes ago? Does the NC and NC dot stand for no consistency or something? Because they have no consistency. But on our next mileage sign, we get Richmond on the bottom line, which is awesome at 169 miles away. But NC dot does not sign Richmond, they sign all these stupid small towns. And here's a photo that I took when I was on this stretch of 95, and it's for exit 95. And one good thing about in North Carolina is that this is the only exit 95 along the entire stretch of Interstate 95. Here is the exit for US Highway 70. And let's see what Interstate 95 is signed north for on US 70. It's signed for Wilson. I thought we were signed for Rocky Mount. Again, what's with the inconsistency? And shortly later up the road, we're in the truck stop road, and at this exit is the Kenley 95, which I've actually been to and I have a whole lot of pictures of. And here's US 301 here in Kenley, and we just get an overhead pull through for Richmond, which is great, but this is the only one that mentions Richmond. And next mileage sign, we still get Richmond on the bottom line at 148 miles away. But sadly, it's not signed. And here's the exit for North Carolina 42, and it gets good control cities. Now remaining 587 and 795 here in the Wilson area, and it's signed for Goldsboro, Raleigh, and Wilson. Here's alternate US 264, which is exit that I've been off of. And shortly later up the road, we're meeting US 64 or future Interstate 87, and signed east for Rocky Mount and Tarboro, and west for Nashville and Raleigh. And starting north of here, I've been on this stretch of Interstate 95 like many times. Seriously, it's too many that I cannot count. In our first mileage sign after leaving US 64, we get Richmond on the bottom line 116 miles away. Here is the exit for North Carolina 4 and 48. And North Carolina 48 is actually going to be paralleling us, and we're going to be meeting it before we enter into the state of Virginia. Here's another exit that I've been off of on the stretch of Interstate 95. And I actually stopped here to stop at this Exxon gas station. Man, it was really sketchy though. I do not recommend going there. Here in the Roanoke Rapids area, I mean US Highway 158. And if you saw my 158 video, we're now signed north for Emporia. Here's the last exit here in North Carolina, finally. And shortly after, we're entering into the state of Virginia. So let's see if Virginia does better than North Carolina. Here's the very first exit in Virginia, and I've also been off of this exit. I actually stopped to eat at this IHOP, which sadly is no longer there. You're mean US Highway 58 here in Emporia, and if you saw my US 58 video, we're signed north for Richmond. But apparently, Virginia does not want to sign that either. So, again, why is Richmond mentioned when it's not signed at random interchanges? And 20 miles up the road, we're passing by Interstate 95's Davis Travel Plaza here at exit 33. And I've been there a few times. It's a pretty cool place. And here at exit 45, this is actually an old sign. I always thought it was funny when I drove past it. It was called Shut Yo Mouth Restaurant. And here's the split with Interstate 295 here in the Petersburg area. And 95 is actually now signed north for Petersburg and Richmond. While 295 north is signed for Washington, which is a great choice. Because every time I drove this stretch of 95, I always take 295 to get back home when I lived up in Fredericksburg. And then here in downtown Petersburg, we're meeting Interstate 85, and we're finally signed north for Richmond itself. Here I'm meeting Virginia Highway 10, and at this exit we get this very great mileage sign with Richmond on the top line, Fredericksburg as our secondary, and then Washington DC as our primary at 121 miles away. Hey PennDOT, you can learn a thing or two from Virginia and sign Chester on your state highways, not on Interstate 95. Here I'm meeting Virginia Highway 288, which I think should be either 864 or they can decommission 664 or 264 down in the Norfolk area and sign that instead for this highway. And we also meet Virginia 895. The reason it's a state highway and not an interstate is because it's actually a toll road. And we actually pass through some very tall underpasses here at exit 67 for Virginia 895. Here's exit 69 for Virginia 161. And after we cross over the James River, we are actually entering into downtown Richmond with this cool skyline here. And we're also meeting Virginia 195, which actually takes us up to Interstate 195. We also have an exit for US 33 and US 250. Now we're meeting Interstate 64 right in front of this cool Welcome to Richmond sign. Now here's where Interstate 64 splits off from us, and we're now meeting Interstate 195 once again. Here's the northern meeting with Interstate 295, and it's signed south for Norfolk and Rocky Mount. While 295 is signed for north for Charlottesville. That's pretty cool. Here I'm meeting Virginia Highway 54, which takes you west over to US 1 or east over to US 301 in Hanover. Here's the exit for Kings Dominion, Virginia Route 30. And 6 miles up the road, we get our last exit mentioned for US 301 North because US 301 is going to be diverging away from Interstate 95 to head further east, while we're going to be continuing north to Washington, D.C. Here is exit 118 for secondary route 606, and sometimes when I lived up in the Fredericksburg area, this would be the exit that I would take to get back home, but most of the time I also take exit 126, which is for US 1 and US 17. Here I'm in Virginia Highway 3 here in the Fredericksburg area, and as you can see all the way over here is Central Park, which is actually a very cool shopping center, and I've been there many times. And across the street from Central Park is the Spotsylvania Town Center Mall, which I've also been to. We have another exit request, this time made by Chuck Slezak. He wanted to see the US 17 and Interstate 95 split at exit 133. And US 17 is now signed north for Warrenton, and 17 business is signed for Falmouth. Also, you can look here, and that's some very expensive express lanes there. $15.50 all the way up to the Springfield interchange. Wow. Here is secondary route 8900, which actually takes you over to the Stafford County Airport. And here's the exit for Quantico and the Marine Corps Museum. Our third exit request for the video comes from Quartermonch437. He wanted to see the exit for Virginia Route 234, which is for Dumfries. So thank you for requesting this exit. And he also wanted to see the exit for Virginia 123, which is for Woodbridge and Occoquan. So thank you again for requesting this exit. And 1 mile up the road, we're being US Highway 1. And we also get this cool notification sign here. If you want to get to Washington, D.C., you would use 395 at the Springfield interchange. And we're now signed north for Baltimore and New York City. I mean, those are pretty awesome control cities. Well, if you want to throw Philadelphia into the mix, then that would be one heck of a good sign. Here in the Springfield interchange, we're meeting with Interstate 495 and 395. And 95 is going to be joining 495 to form the eastern half of the Capital Beltway. And here's our last exit here in Virginia, and just across the Potomac, we're going to be meeting Interstate 295 on the Maryland side. In fact, we cross over the Potomac and we now enter into the state of Maryland. So we're going to be taking exit 3 and turning around and doing southbound Interstate 95. So after crossing the Potomac, we enter back into Virginia with a very large Welcome to Virginia sign. And our first exit is for US 1. And here are back at the Springfield interchange, and now we're meeting with, again, 395 and 495. And 95 is now signed south for Richmond. And here's a cool overview of the massive Springfield interchange. And our first mileage sign after leaving the Springfield interchange, we get Lorton on the top line at 3 miles away, and Richmond is 91 miles away. Wow. And Quartermonch437 want to see the exit for Virginia Highway 286, which is also known as the Fairfax County Parkway. And after that, we have another mileage sign, and we get still Richmond on the bottom at 88 miles away, and Fredericksburg at 36. And then for our fifth exit request, again is made by Quartermonch437. He wanted to see the exit for secondary route 642, which is signed for Lorton. Technically, this is also known as the Lorton Road exit. And I jumped all the way down to US 17, where US 17 is going to be joining with Interstate 95. And you can take the exit here for US 17 North. And after crossing over the Rappahannock River, we have Virginia's Welcome Center. Yes, it's 45 miles into the state. I believe this is the reason why I think it's 45 miles into the state is because when you cross into Virginia Interstate 95 southbound, you're immediately in like the Washington DC suburbs. So where would you put the Welcome Center? So this is probably the most feasible spot you could put it. Also, this Fredericksburg National sign is pretty new. When I lived up there, I did not see that before. So I might have to come back up here and go see a Fredericksburg National game. Here's a cool view of Central Park once again. And after passing by exit 130 for Virginia 3, we get a very cool view of Spotsylvania Town Center, along with these reassurance shields for Interstate 95 and US 17. And after that exit, we get another mileage sign. We get Ashland on the top line and Richmond on the bottom line. And here's the exit for US 1 and US 17 South, which is signed for Spotsylvania. And here's the exit for secondary route 606 once again, and this time it's signed for Thornburg. And here is the Ladysmith rest area. And fun fact, this is the last rest area that I'll pass by on Interstate 95 southbound, all the way until you get to the North Carolina and Virginia Welcome Center. Yes, there is no rest stop between here and the border, so that's 107 miles of no rest stops. So I skipped all the way down to the Richmond area, where we meet Interstate 295, and 295 is signed south for Williamsburg, Norfolk, and Virginia Beach. That's funny because even though it's an X95 child, it has no Interstate 95 South control cities. But for 295 North, we get Richmond and Charlottesville. fact, here's where we meet Interstate 64. And 64 and 95 have a concurrency as we head through downtown Richmond. And here's where Interstate 64 is splitting off from Interstate 95 for Williamsburg and Norfolk. And after crossing over the James River, we meet Virginia Highway 288 once again. It's signed north for Chesterfield. And here I mean Interstate 85 here in Petersburg, and it's signed south for Durham. And I don't know about that choice for Interstate 95 south. You could do Raleigh here, but the thing is that it's actually only the 5-minute faster if you take 95 south to Raleigh instead of taking 85. And both 95 and 85 meet highways that go to Raleigh, so I don't know what to do there. I mean, you could do what they originally had for it and do Rocky Mountain, Miami, but I don't know. Just tell me what you guys should think beyond that sign down in the comment section below. Here's the southern meaning of Interstate 295, and we're signed south for Emporia and Rocky Mount. What is Emporia doing on there? It's practically useless going southbound on 95. No one's going to be taking 58 to head west back towards 85, or 58 east over to Norfolk. There's plenty of options to get to Norfolk or Durham, so it's practically useless. You could do what they did like 10 years ago and do Rocky Mount, Miami. No need for that Emporia. And at random interchanges, 95 is signed south for Emporia. What, is this part of Virginia secretly part of North Carolina or something? Because that Emporia should be either Rocky Mount or Raleigh or Miami. No need for that Emporia. In fact, on our next mileage sign, we get Rocky Mount on the bottom line at 89 miles away. Where's Rocky Mount? Here in Emporia, we mean US Highway 58 and sign east for Emporia, Norfolk, and west for South Hill. And again at the 58 interchange, we're finally signed south for Rocky Mount. And 11 miles up the road, we're entering back into the state of North Carolina. And here's the North Carolina's Welcome Center. And unlike Virginia's, it's only 670 feet into the state instead of 45 miles. And our first mileage sign here in North Carolina, we have Wilson on the bottom line at 64 miles away. So is Rocky Mount now our secondary? I'm confused. Here's the exit for US 158, and it's signed for Roanoke Rapids and Weldon. 4 miles up the road, we get this mileage sign with Fayetteville on the bottom line. And then we get another one, and another one, and another one, and another one. Wow! I can't believe now NC-DOT is signing Fayetteville. But it's all going to go away after we meet US 64. Because apparently NC-DOT likes to do some afterthought here on US 64. 64 is originally signed for Nashville and Rocky Mount, but then they decided to throw on Tarboro on there, and then lastly Raleigh. So why not just move the Raleigh and Tarboro there instead of remove that Nashville and Rocky Mount? Now if that was Nashville, Tennessee, then I would see to keep that Nashville on there, but no way NC-DOT would be signing Nashville, Tennessee. And here I'm meeting alternate 264, and it's signed for Wilson and Sims. And now we're meeting Interstate 795 and 587 once again. And this time Raleigh is on that sign. Here I'm meeting North Carolina 42 once again. And here's the return of Fayetteville, which is now only 68 miles away instead of 120 plus. Here in Smithfield we're meeting US 70. And as you saw last time, Interstate 95 is signed now south for Benson. No! Again, that should be Fayetteville. Because Fayetteville's on our bottom line mileage signs. No need for Benson. Our second to last exit request was made by Jay the Great Gaming. He wanted to see the exit 94 US 701. and US 301 and North Carolina 96 because this is the route that he took to get to Clinton, North Carolina without taking Interstate 40. So thank you for suggesting this exit. And then 10 miles up the road will mean Interstate 40, and it's signed west for Raleigh and Durham, which are great choices. Make this even better, you can just switch that Clinton and Wilmington. But I like to begin a mention of Wilmington here, so that's pretty cool. Here's the exit for Benson once again. So it looks like the NC DOT doesn't seem as pushy to sign Benson on southbound 95 as they do on northbound. Here in Dunn, we're meeting US 421 and North Carolina 55 once again. And our next mileage time, we get Fayetteville in the top line at 16 miles away and Lumberton at 46. No! That Lumberton should be Columbia or Charleston. No need for Lumberton! And yay, this time we get an overhead sign for Interstate 295, and it's signed south for Newton Grove and Fort Liberty. Here in the Fayetteville area, we're meeting Business 95 once again, and 95 is now signed south for Lumberton and Florence. And this sign is as stupid as the northbound one. No need for that Lumberton Florence. You could do Florence in Charleston, or Florence in Columbia, or Lumberton in Columbia, or Lumberton in Charleston. No need for both Lumberton and Florence. Ugh. And like on northbound as well, 87 does not get an overhead sign. What's the deal with that? Our last exit request comes by Real Tony 123. He wanted to see exit 41 because this was the exit for North Carolina 59, which was decommissioned about almost 2 years ago. Rest in peace to North Carolina 59. Here is the future exit for Interstate 295 South, and I hope it's going to be signed for Rayford and Fort Liberty. I don't know what they're actually going to put up for the control cities for 295. Here and I skipped all the way down to Lumberton, we're meeting the 74s, and like last time, just please get it off the screen, it's just too weird to look at. In our last mileage sign here in North Carolina, we get Dillon and Florence. No! Do Florence in Columbia or Florence in Charleston. No need for Dillon. In our last exit here in North Carolina, like I said, is North Carolina 130. And shortly later, we're now back at the south of the border exit, and it's for US 301 and US 501. And at exit 1A, we have the Welcome to South Carolina sign. I'm glad I'm finally done with this highway because it had and that's the end of Interstate 95. Thank you all so much for watching this video on Interstate 95. I hope again this proves that how bad NC DOT really is at signing interstates. Now that's 2 interstates they messed up in a row. So my plans include finishing up the US 20 series next Tuesday, and then after that I may be doing the St. Louis Beltway for the UFL Championship, and that'll be releasing on June 13th. And then after that, I may be doing US 421. So stay tuned for those highways. And thank you guys for watching, and I'll see y'all next week.